we're here in front of Nancy's new trailer. It's a Jayco Jay Series 806, I believe, a 2008. And you know, it's very interesting for me. I've never owned a pop-up trailer before, or a small RV. And I thought I'd just run through a few things that I had a hard time resolving and understanding, and share it with you. So along the side here is the business end of the trailer. Right here, where it says hot, that is basically the chimney to the furnace. Yes, there's a small furnace in there. It's an Atwood furnace. And again, that's another story. We'll get inside the trailer and I'll share that with you. That's an outlet valve for the sink, and also certainly to winterize. And here is where we start with some fun. So when you open up the bottom here, you'll notice I've got the selector switch. You'll see there we have off, gas, AC, and DC. You'll know it's working if you touch the pipe here very, very lightly, because you don't want to get yourself burned. There's an ammonia hydrogen mix in there. Basically it separates. When you turn on the fridge, it doesn't make noise, so don't get freaked out. This type of fridge is basically moving gases around through these pipes in here, and by doing that it cools off the cooling fins inside the fridge. So don't expect the sound. You'll notice in here I've got it selected on gas. You can have it on AC if you're plugged in on the shore, as it were, or DC. If you look up carefully in here, I don't know if you can catch it in the camera, but there are two probes up there. I found that neither of those give off enough heat to accomplish the task. Over here is, you can see the voltage. You can see the two. I've reseated those. I did get heat from the element, but just not hot enough. It's 80 degrees outside, 85 degrees outside, and the fridge is not getting cold enough. So I find that running it on gas is the only way I can keep that fridge cold enough. Inside here is where the flame comes, and I had to clean those orifices, and there's a couple of good YouTube videos on that out on the market. But if you flip that open, you can see I'm not going to touch it now because it's warm. You can see that that's where the little, looks like a pilot light, but in fact it's enough heat to generate the conditions necessary to move around the gas. Over here you'll notice the gas outlet. You see how it's on? It seems a little reverse to logic, but in fact when you see how the valve layout is on this manifold, that is the right orientation. If you're not getting it to start, it's because the orifices aren't clean. So when you put it on gas, here you'll notice I put it on high. When you put it on high, you've got to push down on this button here and then start it up with the starter. When I looked at it, the starter wasn't right where it needed to be, so I put it down when I opened up this little cover here. Once it starts, hold this down for another 10-15 seconds, because if we release it right away, it just goes out. So that's where we are with the gas here, and that's your whole business end of the fridge. Make sure you've got 120 out of here, 118. It only works with the 120, but I haven't been successful in getting enough heat out of that. Okay, close that up. Up in here is more of the fridge if you needed to take it apart. That's where you would take it off. I did clean up the fins in there, vacuumed them out. Over here is your electric plug. I've got it plugged into the garage. Here's the city water under pressure, and here is your tank. And if you look underneath here, we're going to be connecting that up shortly. I want to make sure there's no leaks. You can see the tank right underneath the trailer. That big white thing there. There's a relief valve at the other end for overflow, so you don't, overflowed. Always a good idea to empty it before you leave, because you don't be driving down the road with that extra weight. Not a good idea. Okay, so let's get around here. So there's propane outlets everywhere. You'll find one here. outside for the stove. And again, underneath there's a valve. The valve's on at the moment. I can turn the valve off. We're not really using it. But this quick disconnect, what a pain in the butt. You really got to push that in there, otherwise that'll back off. The bearings in there, I'm not sure if it's just a little bit old, but you really got to put it in and pull this so you get a good seal. Don't forget to put in this armature. Hanging the stove just by the rack is not good enough. That armature hopefully is hidden somewhere like it was in this trailer. I was using a piece of wood till I found it, and we're all good. These seem to work okay. Coming in, you'll see there's a just starting to open up the deck here, and here's a bilge pump, and the switch for that pump is right over here. We'll get to that a little bit later. I think I'll share some of that with you once we get this running. There's your extra electrical wire here, and over here, if you look carefully, there's your other gas line, and that's really, if you're cooking inside, that's where you're going to plug that in. Kind of inconvenient to fit in there. I must say it's a little bit of a pain. But the stove would be on top of here. The cable or the hose would run down through here, and would rest in those 4 slots. The furnace. Now here's a special thing. The furnace is an Atwood. This is a single ported furnace. Gives off enough heat for sure. Here's the thermostat. Without the thermostat, that thing doesn't work. Thermostat, you'll notice right up here, this is the tricky end of the thing, and it's a real special, and if you listen to me, that click, that's on and off, believe it or not, and I'm putting a lot of force, so don't be shy. It really takes some torque to move that from side to side. So first of all, make sure it's in the off position, everything goes off. But if you think it's in the off position and it's not, it may take it over a little bit more, but you see how close that is? Then to pull it over, you think you're braking it, but in fact that's how much torque it needs to put it in the on position. Then to set the thermostat, it's right here at the bottom. There really is no gauge. Basically, turn it up until you hear it turn on, and that's going to be your rate of temperature. You can't set it to 72. There's nothing automatic about this thing. I just vacuumed and made sure that we had DC in here. Is this little switch here? That is actually, if you hear it, that turns around all the way across and then releases, so you can pull off the vent. Otherwise, you won't be able to get it off. Yeah, those are some of the things I noticed here in the trailer so far, and hopefully you'll find those helpful. I'll share some of the plumbing things in a few minutes.
Joining the plumbing. Mm-hmm.
All right, guys. As we were talking about the business end of the plumbing over here, this is the pump. Now, the pump, you can leave the switch on when you have city water pressure that we showed you outside. That water comes in straight through here and through that hose and over to the sink. When you turn on the cold water, in our case, because we have no hot water, it comes out just fine. We've disconnected it at the moment, but that goes out to the city, and I'll show you where it plugs in. There's a hose on the side that allows you to drain, and you can take that hose out to somewhere that's clear, hopefully not to your buddy's tent, but otherwise it'll have a little gray water running in the middle of the night. Right here. So I'll just disconnect it here because we're done our test, but you can see I've run the hose down out to the end of the driveway. Now in the wintertime we'll go through a winterizing expedition, but right at the moment I was clearing off all the ethyl glycol in there, all the radiator fluid. We didn't want to be having that as some after effects like some cheap wines. So the other valve is here. That valve is for releasing the tank. So over here, this hose comes in for low pressure water. So if you wanted to fill your tank, once you get to your site, you don't want to be driving with a full tank of water in there. It's not a good idea. Balance and other reasons for the road. Once you get to the site, you want to put water because you don't have a full service site, but you do want to have some water to wash up or brush your teeth or whatever. Then you can fill that tank. When you fill that tank, then you'll use the pump as well, and it will pump up the water to the well, let me rephrase. If you're using the high pressure water from the city, you don't need to use the pump at all. If you're using the low pressure water that's in that tank, you need to turn on the pump. When you turn on the water, the pump turns on. When you turn off the water, the pump turns off. But the switch, it lives here, and that's got to be on the on position for that to happen. You can hear that pump turning right now. So that's how you get water to the sink with no pressure. Before you leave, you want to release the water. This valve here comes straight up. When that valve comes in the straight up position, then the pump turns on and it pumps out the bottom of the trailer, and you release all the tank water that you've got in there. Now you can connect the fitting to it so it's not dripping all over you, all over the ground, or spraying your face, or shocking humans with spillage. So that might be a good idea on that side of things. And then when you're done, make sure the pump switch is off. I think that handles all the plumbing. That's it. That's a roll. Yeah, share, subscribe. Definitely put out some more videos that might be helpful. Like I said, I couldn't find a lot of stuff. I'll be doing a battery strap and some other things down the road, but and how we connect it to the truck. Thanks for visiting. Ciao.